Welcome back to Right on Four Corners. I'm your host, DelSheree Spinner, and on this week's episode, I am excited to talk to Sean Gerrity. His book has recently come out from Torrey House Press. It was a really fascinating topic I am excited to dig into. Before I get too off track, the book is called Wild on Purpose, The American Prairie Story and the Art of Thinking Bigger. Sean, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks very much, DelSheree, for having me on. My name is Sean Gerrity, and I currently reside in Montana. That's where I mostly grew up. And the book that DelSheree just talked about is a chronicle of how we launched and built the American Prairie Organization and phenomenon. For those of you who haven't heard about it, it's an effort to create the largest wildlife reserve ever assembled in the continental United States. The model is to put together both private and public lands, pull them all together, and make something that is larger than Yellowstone Park and Glacier Parks combined. So that's about 3.25 million acres, and we're doing it on the grasslands, the northern Great Plains, where we're working on the northern Great Plains is in northeastern Montana. The goal is to put back close to historical populations of all the wildlife that used to be there. That's the microbes in the soil, the pollinators, the grassland birds, the ungulates, the big predators, everything that was there until recent times, which was about 150 years or so ago. Open the place to the public and save it for future generations.
Thank you. That is a great introduction to everything that we're going to talk about. What inspired you to turn your story and the beginning of this project into a book?
Well, it's a good question. I co-founded this organization and then had the position of running it as a CEO for nearly 18 years. And it's still going today. It's now been in business 25 years. And all through the time, once we got over the hump of the entrepreneurial phase, which is the first 6 or 7 years where most people think maybe you're going to go out of business because that's typical for entrepreneurial startups, people started saying, how did you get through that phase? And it seems to be on a track of success. Not without its problems, not without its struggles, but after the 10th year, 12th year, 14th year, people are asking, how did you get this started? How did you get it off the ground? There's so many people that want to do these kinds of things in terms of building a better relationship for nature and the world of what we now call rewilding. But this seems to be a phenomenal success story in terms of how fast the land base is growing, the rewilding activities that are going on, all the different things, how you're working with the nearby tribes of indigenous folks who've been out there for thousands of years, et cetera, et cetera. On all our critical success factors, it's been working well and continues to get stronger still today. I thought, well, I've gotten that question nonstop because a lot of people want to do something like this, and we were able to somehow make it work and put it on such a great track towards its ultimate vision that I should write it down. I was first asked actually by National Geographic. It was suggested by them that we really should make a story out of this because it's such an unusual story and more people need to hear how we did it and also need to feel the optimism of you can still do big things like that in the world today. And that's the thing that got me excited, I guess it got me hooked, is that I hear so much, I guess I wouldn't call it nihilism, but maybe some cynicism about can you really do anything today? Things are so contentious, so difficult to get anything started. So many people come out and say you shouldn't be doing that or they'll try to put you out of business or whatever. That is true, but with the right kind of organization, the right kind of vision, and the right attitude for persistence and long-term thinking, you can still think really big. And this project is a very good demonstration project, I guess, of that. So I thought, I think I'll write a book about that, not to pat ourselves on the back, but to give people a different frame. And the typical narrative is everything big has already been done. We've already been to the moon, we've laid the transatlantic cables, we've done all these things, but these days it's just too difficult. And I want to say that's not correct. We're doing the biggest thing in this arena, wildlife reserve, that's ever been done in the United States, bigger than any national park, and we're doing it privately. And we don't have the money. We had to go get money for us to do this thing. It's a very expensive project, and we're going to deliver a success. I know that. I may not see it go across the total finish line in my lifetime, but it's on its way to a success. It's really exciting. So the message is, yes, you can still do big things these days, even in this country, in the United States, where everybody has an opinion about why you shouldn't be doing it. So I thought, I want young people particularly to hear that. because I think young people these days have enough things out in the macro environment. The cost of a house, what's happening to AI, and will I have a job after AI has taken all the jobs, and all these things to worry about, and what's going on with the environments and our oceans and plastics and clean air and clean water and that sort of thing. Is it even worth trying? And I want to say it absolutely is. And here's an example of something that's going on right now. Didn't get started that long ago. We figured it out. You can too. That's the idea.
I love that message. And I think it's so important right now, especially like you said, just the world is so chaotic. It's so contentious. There's all of these changes happening that are really overwhelming for a lot of people. You brought up AI, and it's kind of funny because I did a lesson with my students recently where I gave them an article about someone talking about how AI has kind of demolished the tech industry and how it's filtering into everything else. And kind of their last question after they went through it was, what do you plan to do with your life? And how do you need to adapt your plans in the face of AI? And some of them were just like, this is so depressing. I don't even know, why am I even doing this? And the ones who really took the time to think about it was like, oh, well, if AI can do this part of what I want to do, then I need to learn this other skill and I need to improve here and highlight this. And they were ready to look at it from a point of making a plan and adapting and moving forward. It was interesting for me to see because it wasn't always the kids that I expected to rise to the challenge. Some of the other kids surprised me, but it's even at, I teach ninth graders. And so even at 14, 15-year-olds old, some of them already have that attitude you were talking about of oh, it's too late. I can't do anything. It's all too big. And I think we really do need that message in these examples more often of it's still possible. Yeah, you've got to have a plan and you've got to get people to help you, but we can do big, interesting things right now.
Yeah, and the first part of I agree with everything you're saying there, DelSheree, and I think it's important to keep this going over the next 5-6 years or so as people are just beginning to get used to what is AI about and how is it going to affect us. So right now, I think we're in the thick of the worst part of a transition from a way of doing something to a new set of conditions, and that is in the front end when there's a lot of fear of the unknown. So a lot of people's emotions and assumptions and conclusions are coming out of a fear-based place. But as you get more comfortable and experienced, I think, with AI, it doesn't mean it's going to be all sweetness and light. But I think people are going to start seeing much more opportunity because stories are going to come out about how people are harnessing it, normal people, not just stratospherically rich people who are harnessing it, but just regular people being very clever about how to use it as a tool. I find that way, and I'm a lot older than most younger people I'm talking about. When I say younger, I'm talking 20s, 30s, and early 40s because I'm 67. But I find it unbelievably exciting. To young people, they may roll their eyes, but it's almost in some ways like having a magic wand. It's unbelievable to have the power of it to help you through some of the toughest parts of a process so you don't burn up all your energy in this part of a process, whatever it might be. And by that, I mean you can now do a website so easily. We had to learn HTML to do a website in the 1990s. You actually had to learn to code. There was nobody to pay because nobody knew how to do it. And to go in and you had to take care of your own website. It took so long. It took away from what we were really in business to do. This was a long time ago in a very different part of my life. But I think I want to talk about that. It can be incredibly exciting if you think of yourself as you're the boss. The AI is sitting there as a tool. You pick it up and use it when you want to get through a rough spot in whatever you're trying to do, put it back down. But it's really comforting to know it's sitting there and you can use it to get you faster in the direction of your dreams. That's how I think about it.
Well, and you seem to be, after reading the book, a person who looks at a problem and thinks about how you can bring all of your experience, all of your skills into that arena to help solve it or move it forward or make some progress. So I wanted to ask you to touch a little bit on your first major project of Catalyst and how that came into the process of launching and developing American Prairie.
I get into that in the second part of the book about how I came to think the way I do through our company Catalyst, which we started in 1985 as an organization development consulting firm. And most people didn't even know those terms back then. It was mostly called industrial psychology. Pretty boring way to think about it. So we were early to the game, but we built something called Catalyst Consulting in Santa Cruz, California. Still going today, 47 years later. 3 of us started it though, and I think I was 26 years old and had a 71 Volkswagen camper bus, and I used to drive around the Bay Bay Area trying to sell our idea. And the idea was simply to make teams of people inside organizations move smoother, faster, better, be able to solve problems together as a collective and take credit for solving those problems as a team in the direction of whatever they're trying to do, get a product out the door or a service out the door or whatever it might be. This is really important. I have a bachelor's in psychology from Montana State University. That's it. I don't have a PhD in instructional design or organization development. It was just about how can we help teams of people move easier and get unstuck as they're thinking about we need to be at this place at a particular point in time, 2 years out, 18 months out, whatever it might be. So that's what that was about. We got good at it. We were very young when we started. We didn't have much money, that's for sure, which was very spooky in those days to try to start something in the 80s without a whole lot of money. But we got it going and started to build a reputation for ourselves. 6 or 7 or 8 years later, that reputation carried us all over the world, frankly, with all different kinds of industries. And we were able to hire, rather than just 3 of us, up to 6 and then 7 and then 15 and 20. It took a long time. But what I learned was just about any industry, all different kinds of organizations sent us to different places. And we realized doing that, people are people. Even though culturally we're different, everybody is trying to work together in small collectives to make things happen. I didn't realize how important that was over and over again. And we learned these fundamental ideas for how to help people get unstuck. And next time, they wouldn't need us because they go, let's just use this way of approaching problems in the next iteration of what we're going to do. So that was a lot of fun. Success for us was to not get hired again because they're off and running on their own, which is terrific. Anyway, after years of doing that, themes and patterns came out. And that is, you can start an organization from scratch. You have to think of certain criteria of success for that. You have to pull together the right kind of people that are the right team to pursue the particular kind of vision you have. So I learned that what is vision, and then backing up to what are the type of people to face and thrive with the demands of this particular project. And that's key. I learned a lot with Catalyst. That was a great training ground, although I didn't know it at the time. And quite by accident, I happened across the opportunity to become a part of American Prairie as it was just getting going. I realized I didn't have a degree in conservation biology. I'm not a wildlife biologist. I don't know where we're going to get the bison. We need a lot of bison. I didn't have any of the answers to the many, many problems we need to solve over a series of decades, actually, not just years. And I knew it was going to take a very long time to get this thing done. But what I did know how to do was build an organization from scratch. Even though we didn't have any money to do so, we had to figure out how to fundraise. And then I was never done that before. 3 of us started this again. Like Catalyst, there was a very small group, and we had to slowly build it. So that's kind of how I got into it, is I had a background in being a part of learning from lots of repetition what makes for a really high quality, self-sustaining, nonstop learning organization, starting with 3 and then building it to 10. And now American Prairie is 50 employees, maybe a little bit more at this point. That's a very comfortable place for me, is to know how to pick the right people and to create a sense of alignment in an organization so people know how to stay aligned for a long period of time. And when they get out of alignment, they know how to course correct without some autocratic leader having to come in and fix everything. The second part of the book, as you look through it, DelSheree, before we talked, is about one of the things that has allowed me to get into something that got me extraordinarily excited. And that was to be able to work on this dream project that had nothing going for it when we started in 2001. We had to build everything, the model, the approach, the vision. We didn't have the money to do it, that's for sure. But I think the really important thing is I arrived at this opportunity that just floated by, along with a whole lot of opportunities. Some of you in the American West realize if you're a trout, you sit there in the stream, you're watching this stuff float by in the stream. And there's all kinds of things, opportunities floating by, and you wonder, when do I want to jump out and grab something? That kind of happens if you're ready. If you have skills and you know yourself, you can know when to jump at something, at an opportunity. And I spent quite a bit of time after Catalyst, or while I was winding my time down with Catalyst, but to build something I cared about. I spent a long time getting reoriented to my values when I was 40 years old. How would I describe my sense of purpose? What did I know about risk-taking? How did I see myself in terms of the type of people I would be working with if I could design it perfectly, not even knowing I was going to be working on yet? But I took a long time figuring that out. A couple of years, I had young children, I had a mortgage, but I took time to, rather than think about what do I want to do next, whatever it is, what conditions does it need to be? And I designed that for myself. And then as things floated by, I wanted to see if they met that criteria. And the American Prairie opportunity did. to be able to be a part for a short period of time. It had to be really exciting to me. It had to be something where I thought I had some skills and some value to offer, at least for a while, and that I could make a strong contribution to, that I could build the kind of team that I thought would work for the demands, again, of the project. And one thing that was really interesting, I threw it in as a bonus thing. If it could also be something that I'd have a chance to build that would last, and maybe last beyond my lifetime. And working in business where I was before, I never got to enjoy that. A lot of times we work for an organization and 4 years later we'd be successful in what we did, but it'd be bought or merged with some other corporation and everything would change and it wasn't there anymore. It doesn't mean it didn't have value at the period of time we did it, but things are always morphing and changing and dissolving in the world of corporations. And I thought the cool thing about this project is if we're successful, that's a big if, just like Yellowstone and Glacier and Yosemite, and it'll be here hundreds of years from now, enjoyed by people who aren't going to remember who did it, but they're going to be really glad who did it because they get to go experience it. And that was an awesome feeling. No guarantee of success, but if we could be successful building this multi-million acre thing the way we had designed it, what a thing to be a part of that. So all the criteria I was looking for got met. Like that fish, I jumped out.
I love that idea of being open to opportunities, but being thoughtful and practical, but keeping those big ideas out there. Again, kind of like just the way things are today, it's really easy to get bogged down and feel like there's just nothing out there for you. I loved through reading this, the thoughtfulness with everything that you did. And it really struck me that that's something I think just as people, most of us, we don't take the time to do, even when it's a small decision. We're so instant in our thinking of like, we need it now, we want an answer now. I see that with my students. They either have absolutely no clue or, they get so focused in with like the other end of the spectrum. This is the thing and I'm going to do it and it better all work out. And I have no idea what to do if it doesn't work out. And I just loved that this took a middle ground approach where it was like you had the big dreams, the big ideas, weren't afraid to think beyond what am I going to do for this year to make sure all the bills are met. But you weren't, just jumping at every little thing, diving in without having thought it through. We're so interesting as humans that we seem to not do that most of the time and then wonder why things don't work out. It's like, well, you didn't have a plan or prepare anything, or you had no idea what was going on. And gee, I wonder why that kind of just, exploded in your face.
Yeah.
That there was so much with what you talk about that will reach a wide range of readers. You really touch on a wide range of just aspects of humanity that I found really interesting with this book.
One thing I worry about a little bit with our culture, I'm just going to talk about American culture, is the speed at which things are moving these days. And some of that is at work. You're asked to work faster, get things done faster. When I listen to people's stories, it doesn't feel that much different than it was in the 80s or 90s, but there's more you're expected to keep up on. Absolutely. If your task's done, then you're supposed to go and do your email. And after that, you're supposed to answer all your texts and et cetera. Definitely, there is more overload and more expectation about keeping up. But I think you can rail against that a bit. And I try to say that in the book. You don't have to run at the speed of American culture. And it's really important to figure out ways to slow down, sometimes in big chunks, like stepping out of it for a few months at a time. I talk about my girlfriend of 40 years ago, and now my wife sitting downstairs as I'm doing this interview. So we just took our backpacks and went to Southeast Asia for 6 months. And it was very nice to be completely out of touch. There was in those days, there was no email or texting. So completely out of touch with friends and family for almost 6 straight months. That gave us time to think. And I think people don't have as much time to think. Part of that is what the culture imposes on you. Some of that, though, is we don't want to be bored. If we're standing in line and we need to get a frozen yogurt, the first thing that happens is you pull your phone out of your pocket and start looking at what can stimulate you now, what's here. Maybe you're looking at your text, maybe you're looking at Instagram, whatever. But when you're looking at that, you're not thinking about your purpose. You're not thinking about your values. You're not thinking about what would be the ideal, most amazing vision for myself of where I could be 2 years from now or 3 years from now. It would be all the aspects of that. What kind of work I get to do, what my finances would look like, the kind of people I surround myself with, et cetera. A holistic vision, not just career, but a holistic vision. That takes leaving your phone in your pocket and maybe go sitting on a park bench for 45 minutes, maybe 15 or 20 times over the course of 2 months to actually get clear, crystallized answers to those kinds of questions. And you don't see people hanging out quite so much as used to be. And there's a lot of temptations to be extracted. I would suggest for younger folks is some of this you can't control. You have to get this thing done by Thursday night because your boss wanted you to, whatever it might be. But there's a lot of it that to give yourself quiet and time to think about yourself and what you want by shutting off outside input that's just meant to entertain you. And it's right there in your pocket. It's in that little supercomputer. And it's a very, very powerful and intriguing and seductive thing. It's not evil because we can always just say, no, not now, and put it back in the pocket and put it on quiet mode. We have the power, we have the agency to do that. I do a lot of watercolors and oils. I still read books, even though I've been in extremely busy environments like Catalyst was and like American Prairie was. That was a high pressure, really intense job to be CEO of that business. But I still do these things that take me away so I can spend time by myself. There's nothing like doing an oil painting that you have to sit there and you can't think about anything else or you mess it up. For 2 hours, sit there and just think about shape and color. And you just have to be focused with all this stuff on a project that has no particular meaning. It's just practicing being focused and not being distracted on something that's really fun because it's a work of art. I think to take down some of the anxiety a bit is to, in the back end of the book, it says, talks about if you think about these particular things, you're giving yourself the gift of getting to know yourself again, but in this phase of life. We go through many different phases. So if you thought about your purpose and your values and your vision for yourself 7 or 8 years ago, it's time to do it again because you're a different person now. You've been through a lot more water, a lot more experience, and you have different opinions and thoughts and conclusions on various things. And if you're thinking about a transition, first is invest in yourself. Who are you today? What gets you so excited you can't even hardly stand still? The idea of being involved in a particular kind of thing. What would that be? Everybody has a different list of those things. This is very different than just that book, What Color is Your Parachute? By the way, read that for sure. But what I'm saying is getting to know yourself and finding quiet and lots of time to do it, repeating it. As you'll see, you probably saw it in my book. I value that quite a bit because the world is extremely noisy now. You have to create quiet for yourself to have these conversations so that when things float by, for me as American Prairie, you're ready. You know yourself really well and what's going to light you up. Not just what satisfies some fear. Oh, great, I got a job so I can pay the rent.
I love that. Yeah. And you just answered the next question I was going to ask too. So good job. This was something, it's very thought-provoking. Like I said, on many different levels, I learned a lot about the project and rewilding. That got me off on a bunch of different trails of thoughts, but also just on a more personal level. It made me stop and think because I've, over the last couple of years, gone through a big transition with my personal situation and everything. And I went through that process of what am I doing? What do I want to do moving forward? Where is my passion at? Because I'd been, just kind of surviving for a while and getting through things and taking care of everyone else. And when I finally got to the point where it was I need to actually think about where I am and take care of me so that I can be there and be present in the long term. It's a major mental exercise of taking that time to actually reevaluate and think about who you are and what you need as a person. Not necessarily what you want even, but what you talk about in the book really takes it to a deeper level of what is going to sustain you and fulfill you moving forward. That's very different than what are your needs and wants in that moment to make you feel better or sustain those absolute basic necessities. It really is thought-provoking. And I would say even people who maybe aren't all that interested in conservation or rewilding or, learning more about the natural world, if they want to learn more about themselves, this is a great book to go to really get you to start thinking about who you are and what you want out of life. So I found it really fascinating on both ends of that spectrum.
Well, it's good to hear. So many people ask, why did you quit your day job and get into this? Like it was just a 2-week decision or something like that. It took 3.5 years. I wound down my day job and I had little kids and I was a soccer coach and Cub Scout leader and all that kind of stuff. But I had a lot of time to myself. I had half day to just go walk the dog through the mountains and that sort of thing over and over and over and over again because I was going through a transition like you talked about. And there's a whole chapter, I'm sure you found it, on transitions in there and how to navigate them when you realize endings are happening. Something is ending. And then you can't see the new beginnings yet. So you know you're going to go through a neutral zone, which we have a lot of negative definitions of that in American culture. And someone's going through the neutral zone between two things. We call them at loose ends, or they don't know what they're going to do next, or they're floundering, or they're spinning, or kind of stuff. Nothing's positive in American culture when you're letting go of one situation and turning towards something else and have not yet grabbed onto that because you haven't defined what it is you want yet. You're kind of looked down upon in American culture. And all through the book, I tried to say, don't pay attention to those people. Think for yourself. Give yourself the time. Because the longer you take and the more thoughtful you are, there's a good chance the decision you finally make is going to be of higher quality. So I try to just hammer on that because there's a lot about our society that says, speed up. All the people that have a really good answer when someone says, what do you do? And that kind of stuff. Get desensitized to that. I haven't figured out what to do next, but I'm really enjoying the process of getting to know myself so I make a good decision. That should be your answer when someone asks you that. But I'm glad it came across that way. It's exactly what I was hoping for. Is I'm guessing 10% of the people who read the book are going to really care about wildlife and nature and biodiversity and lice and all that kind of thing. Mostly what I was doing is just trying to tell a story of this is a really big thing. And most people thought there's no room in today's society to pull something like this off in the lower 48. It's too contentious. There's so many people who are not going to want, and that's true. Even today, there's people who don't want this project to happen. It's very controversial, and we're persisting, and it's going to happen anyway. I want people to know this kind of a project, no matter what it is, it doesn't have to be about nature, can occur. I started it with a very small team of people, and for 18 years in there, got it going in the direction of a big success. It's marching along. It's a very well-known project now, and it's pretty exciting. People keep saying year after year, how do you guys keep doing it? How do you keep delivering incremental progress like this? There's a secret sauce, and it's in the book. That's in the front part. But then I wanted to quickly turn to, let's look at us as a society, though, all over the world. And I think we owe it to young people to give them optimism and hope in these times. I think young people are surrounded by so much news of how things are not going well. And the news, after all those countries I visited, I can tell it's not accurate. It's skewed towards things that will frighten us and scare us and inflame our emotions so that we'll buy that newspaper the next day or go back to that podcast with the horrible news the next day. Because it's like slowing down for a car wreck. And we're in this one long experience of watching a car accident. We're slowing down to see it. But there's so many positive things out there that just don't make it to the news. And there's so much opportunity to do great for society, to do great for our relationship to nature. It's just exploding, the idea of rewilding. But you have to know yourself. You have to give yourself the gift of self-knowledge. What gets you excited? What gets you fired up? What would allow you to work for something over a very long term? Because it's just so fun to be a part of it for a while. Those things are out there. They absolutely are out there waiting for you if you'll do the work to prepare yourself and show up with good self-knowledge, and have taken lots of time to do that. I've hired lots of people. I've fired lots of people. You can tell when people, after the first 20 or 30 minutes, if someone has done this kind of work when they're sitting there asking for a job at your place. You will stick out as a rare person for having done this work. That's what I was trying to talk about. And all the tools to do it are there. You don't need apps. There's nothing fancy. You don't need to go back and get a master's degree in psychology or something like this to do it for yourself. I do offer a lot of suggestions of how to find space and quiet, things like that. And that's all free. Yeah, I hope people enjoy that part of the book. It's the main thing I'm most excited about. When someone says, I really got a lot out of the second part of the book, or all these things that you're talking about, because it touched my own life and gave me a new way to frame something I've been thinking about, a transition, or how to take risks. Those are most gratifying. So this has been a very gratifying experience here. The fact that you actually kept reading the rest of the book. You're not just a wildlife fanatic and bailed halfway through because they quit talking about wildlife. I'm glad to hear that. I'm not trying to convert people to becoming wildlife fanatics. I'm trying to convert people to being kind to themselves and give themselves time and walk back away from the culture and create space and quiet and let who you are and what you're interested in come up, as opposed to being completely swamped and washed over by all this entertainment and all the meant to distract us.
So true.
I'm glad that was helpful for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I learned a lot all the way around, and definitely I hope people check it out, whether they're interested in any of the topics that we covered. There's so much more in the book, and we are out of time to dig into it more.
Yeah.
But that leaves room for people to go check it out themselves. And Sean, as we wrap up, tell people where they can find the book and you.
The book is called Wild on Purpose. It's done by Torrey House Press. So You should be able to get it at any independent bookstore. If they don't have it, they can order it for you really quickly. You can find it at most libraries now across the United States. And of course, you can get it on Amazon, many other places as well. You can learn more about it at my website, which is called theanswersouthere.net, about the book and about American Prairie. And I run a podcast called The Answers Are Out There, because I'm very interested in solving things for agriculture, for accelerating things towards clean energy, dealing with global population, human population, and the whole world of rewilding. So the podcast, interesting people who are involved and head down out there working on things like that.
We'll put a link to your website in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today and taking time out of your busy life and everything that you're still doing. It was really great to talk to you.
Thank you, DelSheree. I appreciate having a chance to be on. Really appreciate it.